following narrated video is intended for the Chinese State Railway and its use of the ComplyPro system for the completion and submission of the P930 Wagons Design submissions. In doing this, you'll need to refer to two additional documents which are designed to coexist with this video presentation. Please make sure you have these documents available and have reviewed them before watching this video. The first of these documents is named the CSR P930 Wagons User Guide. This user guide contains a lot of the information contained in this video, but specifically, if you look to page 13, it will define to you the exact explanation of several of the fields and column headers in the system. You'll need to make reference to this in support of the video-based training. The other document you should have is named the Verification and Validation Report Schema in ComplyPro. This extends across the entire Etihad ComplyPro system and is evidently relevant in your P930 Wagons section. Please review this document as well prior to watching this video. Thank you very much. In this section of the training, we're going to look at the controls overview of ComplyPro. The screen you're seeing now is the launch screen that you'll land upon once you log in to the system. It shows the contents of all of the different sections that you'll need to interface with, and indeed those that you won't. But you will find that if you click through or try to click through on one of the buttons that isn't relevant to yourself, it just simply won't do anything. For this video, we're going to be looking at the P930 wagons, but before we do that, let's have a look at some of the other sections on the screen. So we call these buttons at the top left hand side the control buttons. They're fairly obvious in what they do, but we'll have a look at these anyway. We've got a back and a forward button, so if for example we were to say click through into the P930 wagons contents, we could then use the back button to go back to the screen previous, and indeed forwards, backwards. So this works very much like an internet browser. At such time as we've made changes in the system, we do have to save that data back into the live operating database. So this button here that looks like a save disk can be clicked upon and it will save any changes into the live system. If you try to close out of the system using the cross at the top, then if you have made changes, these would be lost if you hadn't saved using the button here, but it would give you a warning to say, are you sure you want to close the system without saving first? If you would say yes, then indeed you would lose those changes. The I button here is simply an information screen. It confirms to you which version of ComplyPro you're using and other sort of information about the build, etc. You don't need to click on this in the day-to-day operation of ComplyPro. The last control button here is a PDF symbol. So not really on the screen we're currently on, but later you'll see, and I'll show you that if I click on the PDF button, I can generate a PDF image or PDF of export of what's currently being displayed on the screen. So we'll do that when we've got a data set being displayed. Okay, now for the next sections along the top. We call these activities. At the moment you'll see that the home activity is highlighted in orange. There's several other activities here which I won't explain at the moment. Just want you to be aware that you go into a different activity simply by clicking on it. Okay, so selecting an activity will launch that activity. At the moment we're on the home screen, so anytime you want to go back to the home screen, you click on the activity called home here. Okay, so these buttons beneath, you simply click on a button and you'll see that as I move around, when I go over a link, just like browsing the internet, then it will change to a little hand symbol. If I then click on the P930 wagons, it will now take me through to the P930 wagons sort of content screen. In here I can find several separate sections. I'll explain these sections more fully in the following videos. However, I will just use this content screen to explain some of the navigation of the screen generally. So if I actually click through into one of these screens further, let's just say the Wagons Common specification. So if I click on the blue text, that tells me that this is also a link. So just like you've seen the buttons were links on the home page, also wherever you see blue text like this, that means you can click through. Now I'm just waiting for it to load, and you will see a status bar at the bottom telling me what it's doing, so I can be sure it's still actively loading based upon the button that you've selected. Now, I've now loaded up a set of data into this window. It tells me what this data is. Indeed, I knew I was clicked on the Wagon Common specification, but that will tell me that just above the data at the top. There are several screen layouts in ComplyPro. This is probably one of the most typical. When you see two screens side by side like this, or just as readily above and below, then it tells us that this set of data is the master set of data, or indeed at the top if it was an above and below view. And I can click on any one of the rows in this table of data by selecting the column on the left hand side by simply left clicking on it. Then in the right hand side of the screen, it will show me any data that's been configured to show as linked to this. So I'm seeing here the Wagons Common specification, and that there's 114 requirements listed in this document. And to the right hand side, I'm seeing three different tabs, and we call these link tabs. By selecting the different tab will show me the different sets of data that it's linked to. So any parent items to the item that's been selected on the left, and note I have to select the row, and that will change what's being displayed on the right. So select the row, it shows me which parents from the SRS are parent to this specification statement here. If I choose a different specification statement, it shows me a different set of parents. So children now. This is what's beneath the specification statements here. So any items that fall beneath this, and once again will change based upon what I have selected. This will show me the CSRs, in this case the Wagon Contractors SR, Systems Requirement Specification statement here, that satisfies this contract specification statement at the top. So I can click between these tabs, and I can click between the statements in order to show me and look at the traceability for the parents and the children of the item being displayed in the main screen to the left. Okay, let's now look at some of the filtering and searching. You've got some buttons just above the main screen to the left here. If I want to search this data set beneath, let's just say I want to search this for the word furnish. Okay, if I type in furnish to this box and click on the down arrow, okay, it will find me any instances where it's listed as furnish, or where it finds furnish, and indeed it will highlight it yellow, and if I click on the down arrow it will move through to the next item that it's found. In this case here you'll see it only finds furnish once, and therefore when I click on the item or on the down arrow it doesn't take me any further. If I choose a word that does show more than once, let's think of a common word like the, for example, then it'll find a load of instances of the word the, and when I go through it will take me through all of the different objects where it finds the word the. Okay, these next boxes here are for filtering. If I choose a heading from this left drop down box, for example, let's just choose requirement, and if you notice before we found the word furnish, which was unique in the requirements column using the filter. So if I search or try to filter on the requirements column where it finds the word furnish, I should indeed only find one item left here. So let's click on the filter button, and indeed here we go, I've got one item being displayed now. So you can turn the filter on or off using the filter button, and you can choose all or any if you were to select multiple words. So let's just say furnish and in. So I can choose anywhere that it finds both of the words, i.e. it'll still find it in here because we've got the word furnish and we've got the word in. If I choose any, it will now show me all of the statements where it finds either furnish or in the statement. Okay, now we're going to look into the next video now, so I'll close off on this one and we'll look a bit more specifically at some of the other components of the system. When you open the Etihad Rail ComplyPro system, you land on this main screen contents page. Now, as this set of videos is allocated towards the P930 Wagons, then we just need to see that you find the P930 Wagons Stage 1 button just here, fairly central. By clicking on this particular button itself, it will take us through to kind of like a sub-content screen showing some different documents pertinent to the P930 Wagons only. Wherever you see the blue text simply means that you can click through and that is a document in its own right. We'll explain some of the other fields on this screen, document numbers and revisions, at a later point. However, wherever you see this blue text, you can click through. There's different sections on here. The contract specifications, of which there's a common and a technical specification. There's the system requirement specification, of which there's one here for the Chinese State Railways SRS response to these contract specifications. And then we've got the design requirement specification, the submission that satisfies this particular SRS. And then we've got a list of documents essentially whereby the documents can be referenced from within the design requirement submission. There are two contract specifications in the ComplyPro system for the Wagons P930. These are the common specification and the technical specification. I can click through and view these as a CSR representative by selecting the word in blue. Here I've opened the Wagons common specification and I can see that there's 114 requirements listed here as statements. I can indeed scroll up or down the list by using the scroll bar to the right hand side and scroll left to right because there's several fields in here that can be viewed. You will notice as a CSR representative that if I try to double click and edit the content of these cells for the contract specifications, I'm not able to do so. That's because these documents are restricted from being edited to certain users. If I click on one of these rows and highlight the row using the bar to the left hand side, then you'll see that these, what we call link tabs to the right hand side, will change in what's being displayed. So because I'm selected on the parents link tab, it will show me for any row that I've got selected the parents that are related to the specification item that's selected to the left. So no matter which one I select, it will change and display to me only the parents that are linked up from the statement to the left hand side. Any children that are falling below this statement will be displayed in the children link tab. So the next level below the common specification here is the Chinese State Railway SRS response to that. We'll be looking at that in the next video. Looking back at the parents again, if you want to view the SRS above the Wagon Common specification, then because it's blue text, I can click on the item being displayed to me here, and it will open up the SRS to the left hand side and display to me all of the items for the full SRS and highlight to me the one that it's being linked against. I can then click on the back button and it will take me back to the screen that I've originated from. The next stage below the contract specifications is the Chinese State Railways Wagons SRS. This is essentially the first task that you need to complete. If I click through into this, then it will display to me this SRS to the left hand side. Now the principle of this SRS is that by statement it will satisfy your understanding and delivery of all of the statements within the common and technical specifications that we just reviewed in the contract requirements. So I've pre-populated this to save you the time with all of the statements from the common and wagon technical, also the common and technical wagon specifications. So you don't need to obviously retype all of these. You essentially need to confirm your understanding of these and review them and make any changes as necessary. This is your opportunity to come back to Etihad with any concerns about your delivery against these specifications. If they're not highlighted at this point, then down the line the question would be asked as to why wasn't it brought up at this point when your delivery doesn't satisfy these specifications. So I've linked the statements back up to the common and technical wagon specifications, so you'll see here that this, say, second item here, it's got a parent against it. We've looked at link tabs already, but the parent for this particular item is the Wagon Common 2 statement. The item for this one here is the Wagon Common 1 statement, and you can see the detail. So all of the items in here, if I click on any random one of them, you'll see that it satisfies a different parent item. So what you need to do is to review the content of this SRS, which at the moment, understand, is the same as the common and technical specifications, but you need to review this and make any changes as necessary. You can also, or you'd also need to fill out some of the fields that are following. So there's the category, the V&V intention, and the type are the most important ones here. So the way that you change the category is by double clicking. If I double click in the cell, it gives me a drop down list that I can choose one or another of these statements or the categories. The V&V intention is very similar. You tick whether it's not a requirement or that it needs to be verified or validated. And then the type is simply stating that it's whether it's a requirement or not a requirement. So you can scroll left to right using this scroll bar, and you can change the proportion between the left and right views by hovering over the line in the middle and moving it left or right, so that you can see different amounts on each screen in relation to each other. If you want to break out these statements, and because at the moment it's a one-to-one relationship, so that there's a single statement here that satisfies the Wagon Common 1 specification statement here. But if I want to insert another requirement, I can use the right click button. Then I can select the row, right click and insert requirement after, and then I get another item in here. I can then complete this with some sort of further detail if I want to, and then I can obviously fill out and complete these other the other columns as necessary, but I need to select the row then, and I need to link it to the item that it's satisfying. As you've seen here, that this statement that I've pre-filled out is satisfying the Wagon Common 1 statement. So it may well be that you've also put in an additional statement here that helps to satisfy the Wagon Common 1 statement. So I select the row here, I choose the Wagon Common specification link tab at the right hand side, and if I want to link it to the Wagon Common 1 statement in addition to this one, I just highlight it and then I can right click and link the objects together. And now then both of these objects, both of them, will be linked to the Wagon Common 1. So if I look at the parents, then I can see that this row has a parent of Wagon Common 1 and this one also does. So it is possible. At the moment there's just a single statement in the SRS to each of the statements in the common and technical specifications, but it is possible for you, if you want, to create or to insert additional rows and link them to the specification items on the right hand side as well. Now in this section of the video we're going to look at how you create the detailed section of your design submission. So to this point we've reviewed the technical and common specifications from the contract level at the top here. We've then looked at and reviewed our SRS response to these specifications, which has been, as I said before, pre-populated for you, and that you need to check through and amend as necessary to bring out or bring into light any discrepancies with how you feel your delivery may not match against the contract specifications. Now we've gone through to the actual design requirements down here at the next level. So I'll click through to the Wagons DR document that's been set up for you. I will say at this point, if you feel as if you need additional documents to form part of your design submission, then please obviously contact us at ComplyServe or go through Etihad to us, and we will set up for you additional design requirement documents for you to populate as necessary, and they will show as additional items in this list here instead of the single one that's been set up for you at the present time. So if I click through to the Wagons DR here, that then gives me a work area. So whereas before with the SRS we saw in this section here it was pre-populated, there's just a couple of items in here that I've just put in as a few samples, and we're going to put some more in now too. So the idea being, if I look along the right hand side, and we should be starting to get a bit more familiar with the link tabs, it's kind of arrangement now. If I look to the SRS, okay, this here that's being displayed in this side is the complete SRS that you've just finished editing and checking through in the level above. So now we need to create a design submission beneath this SRS, and we need to make sure that our design submission completely satisfies each and every statement within the SRS. So how do we do that? Well, we need to create items on the left hand side here in our design submission, and the detail in these items will give explanation around the design requirements, and those requirements can then be linked back across to the SRS statements here, so that we end up with a complete design requirement specification on the left that satisfies in its entirety the SRS statements on the right. Okay, so we've seen before how we can insert some new rows, but let's do this again. So if I want to insert another requirement in the list here, and I can do this at any point, so I could insert a requirement here as opposed to at the end. When I do that, it will come into the list and be highlighted, and I've got the capability now to put in the text that defines the statement of the requirement. You can see at the moment in this column for links that this statement that I've just inserted here, this requirement, is currently not inward or outward linked to anything at this point in time. So that's something we'll come on to in a minute. Okay, so we've also got other columns in here, and just like before, we've got the documents that were referred to in the introduction, and those documents show you fully the kind of description and explanation of each and every field that you get as you move along. So I won't explain that to you case by case here, because the easiest way is for you to refer to that document that you've been sent. What I will show you in here is how to actually insert new rows into this table of requirements, and also to populate these additional columns. So we've seen that this column here in the middle, this requirement statement, is just free text. So I can double click into it and I can edit this as I wish to by simply typing. The ID column to the left hand side is automatic. If I double click in it, it's just greyed out. I can't change that. This links column is also automatic. I can't change that. That will change and show you the correct symbols based upon what is and what isn't linked in or out of this requirement. So we'll see that change when we come to link this requirement in a minute. Okay, so the category now, this is a drop down. So when I double click in this cell, it gives me a choice that I can select a category for this statement. I'll scroll along now, and I can specify my V&V intention for, let's just say, verification and validation, and I can specify my type to say that this is a requirement. Now these fields here, the next four, are all greyed out, so when I double click you'll see it's greyed out. These are filled in automatically for the date that this has been created and who it's been created by, and then ultimately when it's modified, who's modified it and when. So these things will fill in automatically, so at such time as I save this, when I've finished my session, these things will populate accordingly. But you can't enter anything into here, as is shown by the fact that it's greyed out. The other columns, as you move further along, are described fully in the supporting documentation. They're not items that you fill out yourself. They are informative items that tell you what you need to know. Essentially, it's saying that there's an error with this particular statement, in that and this code is defined in the supporting documentation. So please review that supporting documentation that was mentioned in the introduction, because all of these field definitions are described fully in there and explanation given as to what these different codes are referring to. So as you're filling this information out, the items that you need to fill out are the statement, are the category, the V&V intention, and the type. Okay, so once I've populated my text into this requirement field here for my design, I then now need to specify what is it this is satisfying in the SRS. Okay, so I can go to my SRS link tab on the right. I can find in here just by scrolling through or using the scroll bar on the right hand side. I can find the statement that this is intended to satisfy. I simply make sure I've got the statement on the left selected and the statement on the right selected, and so that I can then successfully map them together. Now, either by right clicking on the left hand side of the left hand statement or the right hand statement, I can right click and opt to link objects. So when I do that, you'll now notice this has just changed and is showing me that I've got a downward link from the SRS going down to this design requirement, and I will see also that this field is now no longer blank in a link section here, and is showing me that going upwards from this design requirement is going up to an SRS item. Now this just tells you that a link exists. It doesn't tell you how many, but the potential is there for one design requirement to satisfy many SRS statements, or indeed the other way around, so that there can be many items on the left hand side, many design requirements that all satisfy a single SRS statement. So let's look at the first item here. We'll select this item, but now let's also specify a different SRS statement to the right hand side. Okay, we've already mapped it against SR20. Let's also map this by selecting a different statement, item number 21. Now we can right click and also link the test edit dr-1 to the left with SR21 to the right. So you can see that I can create as many links as I want from left to right, so it's a many-to-many relationship, and also the other way. So I can have many statements here. So let's insert another one. Okay, test edit 2. So I've now got an additional statement in my design submission to the left hand side, and now this is also going to contribute towards the satisfaction of this SRS statement. So you'll see that it's already being satisfied by the item above. there's already a link going back to the design submission, but now I'm going to link the objects as well. So I've now got Test Edit 1 and Test Edit 2 as two different design statements which are both linking up to the same SRS statement. So the flexibility is there for a many-to-many relationship between the design submission statements and the SRS statements. Do remember that you need to, in your design submission, you need to make sure that every single item and statement in this SRS document to the right hand side does have a link back, so it needs to be fully satisfied. Okay, now I've mentioned already that you can have more than one design submission document. Okay, there is a single one that's been set up for you. Obviously they're all blank at this point in time. It is possible for us to assist you with importing into this into these documents. So if you were to provide, for example, an Excel worksheet with a list of design requirements, categories, and V&V intentions filled out in the same format as you see here, then we can work with you to import that information. If it doesn't exist already, it's by far the simpler option to create new requirements and insert them and enter them directly into ComplyPro using this interface like you've just seen me do. Okay, if you need additional documents, okay, if I click on the back button now, it takes me back to my sort of P930 content screen where I've got my Wagons DR design submission document. If I need additional documents, then just, as I say, please just ask us and we'll set you up with 2, 3, 4, 5, however many design requirement documents that you want to individually be set up in here, and the content of each one of those can contribute towards the satisfaction of the SRS at the level above. Okay, let's go back into the design requirement document. So we've now got, I need to explain to you how to make these into headings. So if you want to create a heading, then you simply select the row that you want to make an edit to, okay, and let's just say I want to change this item here into a heading. Then I need to click across to a different activity at the top. I need to go across to admin. When I do that, you'll see that I've got the option of changing between whether it's in the text is in the text column or the heading column. So by default, anything I enter in the main screen will go into the text column. But if I want to modify it to a heading, then let's just say this text here, I want it to be as a heading. I can put that in to the heading column instead, whatever it needs to be. Okay, and click back to spec, and you'll see here that I've got a heading, so it displays slightly differently. So that's how you change between whether it's just a text item or whether you want it to be referenced as a heading to the items beneath it. You just click between the admin to make those changes in here, or the spec to go back to the screen you were at previously. So between admin and spec. Okay, so we've now got an additional tab to the right hand side here. We've seen how we link items from the SRS to items within your design submission documents, but there's another layer here of what we call, of what are essentially linked documents that help to reinforce your design submission. Now, documents that these could be sort of drawings, they could be a set of technical specifications, but where these are listed, where the document is like statemented and is a set of statements, it might be best to have this document not as an external document and referenced in here, but actually put it in as a design submission document and import all of the statements into here so that you can then link each statement back to the item in the SRS that it satisfies. But I will show you, obviously, how you can reference an external document from your design submission in support of your case. So firstly, you can see here that the Documents tab gives me a list of documents. I can change the column widths if I wish to. I'll just do that so you can see what else is on this screen. Now, there's a document number. These aren't real documents here. This is just something we put in for a test. But if you want to submit documents to the document management system that's being managed by Etihad, then you need to submit that document, and then you will have a link to that document. It's just like a website link. When you've got that link, you can put that link into this particular field here, and then you can manage these fields here, which are obviously explained. As I said before, all the fields are explained inside the supporting document, and you can give it a title here. Document is just the text here, but it will obviously have a proper title and a proper document number. Now, you don't actually insert new documents in this view. All of the documents you've already got in here will be referenced, but if you want to reference additional documents, you need to do that from the previous screen. So if I click on the back button and go back to my content screen here, you'll see on the bottom here, the next level down, you can see Wagons Documents. So when I click on Wagons Documents, here you'll see the kind of list of 2 different documents that I was showing just a moment ago. I can insert a reference point to an additional document, just like I was doing inserting requirements previously. I can give a document number. I can give it a name of doc, and obviously the revisions, the ComplyPro revision and the document management system revision are entered in here. The ComplyPro revision yourself and the revision of the document management system will be populated automatically, but please see the explanation for these fields in the supporting document. The link, is just something that you can either type in or paste into here from an email that you may have been sent. But essentially, just using the guidance of what's above, then type in the link to the document so that when you click on that, it will launch that document from the document management system. You need to liaise with Etihad directly with regards to having additional documents set up into the document management system so that they can be linked in this way. That's not something that you do through the ComplyPro tool itself. The document management system is a separately managed system that you need to work through Etihad with. Okay, so let me now go back to my content screen and into my design submission document. So now, if I want to make a reference or to use refer to a document from within my design submission on the left, then I simply need to specify the line item that I wish to make the reference from. I need to click the Documents tab to the right, and just like I did with linking SRS statements to design submission statements, I can select a document item here and right click and link the objects together. So now you can see how I can link items from the design submission to both upwards to the SRS statements and downwards to any supporting documents that may be necessary. These could be things like drawings or any technical specification, something like that. But do note that any confusion you might have as to which documents can be referred to as an external document and which documents are expected to be imported as design submission documents individually, please confirm that with your Etihad colleagues, and they'll gladly sort of assist you in making the right judgment. ComplyServe are obviously happy to set up additional documents for you for your design submission, where necessary, and we can sort of help you in that process. Okay, so on the right hand side now we can see the other tabs that we've seen before for the parents and the children. So by selecting, say, this statement on the left, I can see on the right that it satisfies 3 different SRS items. I can see that this item satisfies 1. I can see that this item here satisfies 1, but this one here actually, well, let's just insert another one that's not actually linked. So we'll see that, and give it some sort of name. Okay, so we'll see if we select this one here, it's not currently linked to anything, so it has no parents, and it also has no children. The item that we had here, that had obviously several parents, also has a child. Here it is, it's linking, it's making a reference to this external document. Okay, so one thing I've not mentioned already is quite simple, but you can change the column widths by simply dragging the column separators across. You can apply the filters and the search items as explained in an earlier section, and you can, as shown already, change items between headings and just text items by using the admin option here, switching back to the spec view when you wish to carry on and insert additional items and amend as necessary. Okay, so if at any point you want to generate a PDF export, at the beginning I mentioned you'd be able to do this. So using this PDF button, I can generate an export of what's being shown on the screen currently. So if I click the button now, it gives me some choices, so I can amend the header and the footer or choose between portrait and landscape, etc. Then I can generate it as a PDF, and it'll likely open up on another screen here, and I'll just drag it across for you. Here we go, and I can see that it's populated a PDF document which I can now save off or print or do what I want with of the view that you're currently working on. So that's how the PDF export works in ComplyPro. Right, that just about ends this section. There's another section really that details to you these columns here and this section with regards to the reporting. Now, this reporting is covered in, as mentioned in the introduction, in its own little supporting document really, which clarifies exactly what is being displayed in the columns. But essentially, every single document that's listed in these content screens has a verification and validation report associated with it. Some of these will have been set up already, some of which won't, but when you select the item or the row on this side of the screen, the V&V report will refresh on the right hand side of the screen to the report that corresponds with that particular document. So you can see if I end up with multiple design submission documents here, all listed out under this section, each one will have a V&V report that can be created against it, and the process for doing that is described in full in the supporting document.